A thunderstorm was rumbling over the city. The rumble and rolls of thunder frightened Korat with fear, huddled half under the sofa. Heavy raindrops, drums, or windowsills. Camille stood at the window and stared out into the darkness. There were exactly the same trickles running down her face as on the glass. When Korat once again forgot and rushed to the sofa, the girl shouted at him, "Fool! What are you afraid of? Sitting here in a warm apartment. And the storm? It's out there, on the street. Stop chickening out." Such a big dog, as if realizing the words of his mistress, Korat pressed his tail and slightly commanded him. Guiltily, the girl came to her and rubbed him behind the ear. Stephen lingered. He had been delayed more and more lately. Camille realized that in the last month of her pregnancy, she had become less attractive to him, but she needed his support now more than ever. They were not married because they both considered a stamp in their passports a useless formality. Could any stamp be a symbol of true love? A child is another matter. When Camille found out she was pregnant, she was over the moon. She and Stephen had just started their life together. Camille came from a small town where she lived with her grandmother. She did not remember her parents? Her mother died when the girl was only 3 years old, and she never saw her father. In the metropolis, the girl hoped to start a happy life. She entered the culinary school without much difficulty, and after graduation she got a job in a small restaurant. It was there that she met Stephen. The guy liked the pretty and cheerful girl at once. He took care of her for a long time, bringing flowers at the end of each shift. For not spoiled by male attention, provincial girl, such romantic gestures seemed something fabulous and unimaginable. Camille fell in love almost immediately. The feelings were mutual, and the young people began to build a relationship. Camille lived in a small apartment in the suburbs, which she rented with her friend. The friend often brought guys to visit, and rarely when they were the same as the last time. Camille didn't judge Vanessa's behavior because everyone had the right to live the way they wanted. But she did not feel comfortable living in such an environment. When Stephen suggested moving in together, she agreed without a second thought, even though that they had only been dating for 4 months. Camille was a good cook, so she immediately decided to start spoiling her beloved with delicious food. Stephen liked it very much. The guy was earning well, so he offered Camille to quit her job and fully devote herself to the household. And she was only happy to make the house cozy. After all, Stephen was so pleasant to return every evening to the place where he was loved and waited. They lived like that for 3 more months, and then Camille saw the cherished 2 stripes on the test. All day long she sat on pins and needles awaiting for the return of her beloved Stephen. When the girl told him the news, the guy was very happy, picked her up in his arms, and circled her for a long time. Camille was happy and everything was fine. But lately Stephen had been distant. He came home late, ate in silence, and went to bed. Sometimes he even forgot to kiss her. The girl associated such behavior with her position and loss of attractiveness. Attempts to bring her beloved to a serious conversation did not lead to anything. Stephen explained that now work was taking a lot of energy, but Camille felt that it was more than that. And now he was delayed again. The girl was worried about the storm. The wind outside was so strong that a couple of trees in the yard even had a few large branches broken off. I hope he's okay, she thought, peering into the darkness. I haven't seen a storm like this in a long time. Maybe Stephen is just sitting in the office, waiting out the storm? That's exactly what I'd do if I were him. Finally, she heard the sound of the lock opening. The town barked happily, welcoming the owner. "Here I am!" A familiar voice came from the hallway. "What a watering, Stephen!" Camille exclaimed joyfully, coming out to meet him. "I was so worried." What are you? The guy grinned. You can't be worried in your position, huh? How could I not? You were supposed to be here at 6 morning. It's almost 10 here, and you've got a lot on your mind, you fool. Stephen put his arm around Camille's waist and stroked her belly. Oh, can you feel her like that all day today? She smiled. The baby inside her stirred again. I think it will be soon. It's about time. All right, don't worry. You'll feel better in a little while. Well, I don't know how much better. Camille frowned. Stephen, honestly, I'm so scared. Scared of being a mom? Come on, because you and I can do this together. I love you so much. Camille pressed her whole body against her man. You must be hungry. Did I cook in there? No, honey. We ate at the office. The guys ordered delivery. I'm sorry. I seriously didn't know when I'd be back. Okay. Well, the girl's a little upset. Why don't I give you a bath? 'Cause you're soaking wet. I could use a hot bath. Leaving Stephen with the dog, Camille went to give the boy a bath. When the water was about halfway up, she felt a sharp pain in her stomach. The spasm repeated itself. Camille fell to her knees and was soon treated for the pain. Stephen, she screamed. What took you so long? Resented the guy, peering into the bathroom. Chesa, here we go! Appa, puzzled, Camille said. Shit. Even the water broke. Now wait! What do I do? Camille looked at him fearfully. Can you get dressed? Come on, go to the hospital. I can't. Camille screamed in pain. So stay here for a while. I'll call an ambulance. I hope they will come quickly in such a threat. Stephen quickly contacted the control room, explained the situation, and helped Camille to lie down on the bed. The contractions were recurring more and more frequently. The girl was in pain and scared. The minutes dragged on endlessly. Stephen was panicking no less. He did not know how to help Camille and only stroked her arm. After about 40 minutes, the ambulance crew finally arrived and asked how often the contractions were recurring. They put Camille on a stretcher and took her to the hospital. Stephen followed. The delivery went smoothly. After only 3 hours, a healthy baby girl was born. When the baby was brought to her mother, Camille was already recovering a little. I gently took the baby in her arms and put them to her breast. Stephen was allowed to enter the room. When he saw his daughter, the boy smiled, though his face was still very frightened. Look how much she looks like you, Camille whispered. But be quiet. I'm so afraid of disturbing her. Oh, God, Stephen replied in the same whisper. What miracle, Hey, am I a father now? Yes, darling, answered Camille tiredly. This is our daughter. The boy stood mesmerized, watching his little girl, nodding quietly. Yes, and suddenly said Camille, you have no face on you, and it's so late. Go home, go to sleep, we'll be here. Camille spent the next 3 days in the postpartum ward. Stephen never came to see her, citing a heavy workload. Even though Camille hated it, she understood. After all, the guy had to make money. Vanessa came to visit her a couple of times, bringing fruit. Don't worry, her friend comforted Camille. Your Stephen's not going anywhere. So what if he works? You'll live better now than you did before. All your time will be spent on the baby. Men work all the time. That's normal. You'll get in shape and everything will be fine. Of course, a pregnant woman can make a man's desire for a baby go away. And it's not just the loss of physical attractiveness. Think about it. You were cranky. And in general, he found an outlet in work. A distraction, so to speak. You think Camille doubted it? It's just that lately I feel like he's gone cold on me. No, he's not. Is that normal? How would you know? You've never even been in a normal relationship. It's psychology, Vanessa said with an important look. You'll see. He'll crawl on his knees in front of you and apologize for being so unattentive. Vanessa, my I kind of were... Got Papa to get it, but it's just a stupid feeling. It's just postpartum jitters. I hope so. Now I'm worried he won't be able to meet me because of his job. Oh, woe is me. You're on your own. Cabs have never been canceled. And don't get yourself worked up. By the way, when you're discharged the day after tomorrow, I'd come to you myself so you don't have to worry, but I've got a new boyfriend at the cottage. Vanessa, come on, go and don't even think about me. What if you do something serious this time? I wish, said her friend dreamily. There's such a man there, it's amazing. It would be a pity to lose him. So hold him tight, and I'll try to calm down. It's just so hard to wear me down when I'm pregnant. Why haven't you named your daughter yet? Stephen said he'd come up with one himself. It's very important to him. But I've already named her Emily, to be honest. It's a beautiful name. All right, you rest up, friend. And I'll stop by when I get back from the cottage. Right? I almost scolded Emily and Stephen for being so indifferent. He's such a workaholic, isn't he? You wouldn't know it from him. Come on, Vanessa, have a good trip. On the day of discharge, Stephen did not answer the phone, although he had promised to meet them from the hospital the day before. Camille began to worry a lot. She had always been an alarmist and assumed the worst. What if he had an accident? The girl was nervous. Where to call in such cases? Right. Camille guessed to call Stephen at work. Good afternoon, she greeted the girl who answered at the other end of the line. Can I hear Stephen Filippov? Oops, caught the girl. And he doesn't work for us anymore. How strong is that? Camille was surprised. A long time ago? He quit 3 months ago. What can't be? He didn't tell me anything. I'm sorry, who are you? I was Camille, but suddenly I ran out. Sorry, goodbye. She hung up the phone at a complete loss. Camille had never imagined that things would turn out this way. Of course, Stephen might not have told her that he'd quit, so that she wouldn't worry. But in that case, where had he been all day? She made several more attempts to call the guy, but each time she got an answering machine. Camille left him a message, but and he still hadn't called back. There was nothing to do. She would have to check out and go home alone with the baby. The worst thing was that Camille had no keys to the apartment, no money, and no card to order a cab. When labor started, she had no time to pack anything. And Stephen had not brought her anything, promising to pick her up from the maternity hospital. When Camille was handed the baby girl, she hugged the girl tightly, and picking up her bag, went out into the lobby. There was no crowd. She sat for a few minutes, rocking her sleeping daughter in her arms, and then went outside. It was a warm summer day. There were people scurrying around everywhere, looking at their happy faces. Camille cried. She didn't know what to do. Taking the bus with the baby seemed like a bad idea. She didn't even know how to get home. She stood there in tears, afraid of waking the baby. Camille did not know how much time had passed. She sank helplessly on the bench and pressed the girl to her chest. Her thoughts drifted away. Camille did not even immediately realize that she was being addressed by a man, a girl, and a girl. The stranger shook her lightly by the shoulder. Are you all right? Do you need any help? Why, excuse me? Camille snapped out of her oblivion and looked at the stranger. Expensive jacket, thin gold-rimmed glasses. Clean-cut look. The man was in his 50s. In his hair, silver gray. I apologize for invading your space, the man continued. Are you crying? Sitting here alone with a baby? Obviously something's happened. What's it to you? Through her tears, Camille replied. I can't pass by someone who is in trouble. The man smiled softly. Camille felt a little ashamed that she had been harsh with him. My name is John. And you? Camille. The girl was embarrassed, but responded with a handshake to the outstretched hand of her interlocutor. It's a miracle. John nodded at the little girl. She has no name yet. Well, it's on the paperwork. I named her Emily. Stephen, Camille burst into tears again at the memory of the boy. I can see that you, dear Camille, are in some kind of trouble. It's not hard to guess that it has to do with a certain Stephen. a man sat down next to me, showing that he was ready to listen to the story. Unfamiliar girls. Pardon me for imposing. I realize how it all looks from the outside, but maybe I can help you? No one can help me. She sighed deeply, holding her baby even tighter. Honestly, I don't even know what happened. So much so that I was discharged from the hospital. And Stephen is my boyfriend. He is. He's disappeared. I don't have any money or keys to my apartment. And he's not answering his cell phone. I don't know what to think. Stefan quit his job, but he hasn't told me anything. And I don't know if he's lying to me or if something's wrong. There's been something going on with him lately, but I haven't noticed because I'm pregnant, and now I have to get home, and I don't have money for a cab, and that's the problem. John raised an eyebrow. Let me give you a ride. It's not that hard. I have a car. How far is it to Vernesky? I'd take the bus, but I don't know which route goes there from here. Come on, Camille. We'll be there in 15 minutes. Don't cry. I can't thank you enough. Come on, it's nothing. John took Camille's bag and walked her to her car. The luxurious black SUV gleamed brightly in the sun. Camille had only seen them in pictures. She didn't know the make of the car, but she knew at once that it was worth a fortune. Come on, make yourself comfortable. John opened the back door, revealing a cozy light interior. Camille was even scared to sit on such expensive leather. I'll support the baby. I promise not to drop my word of honor. There was such warmth in John's tone that Camille held the baby out to him without a second thought. She got into the car, and John immediately gave her the baby back to her and got into the driver's seat. It's a beautiful car, Camille complimented her. It's just a means of transportation. John laughed. I rarely drive it myself, but sometimes I want to drive it. I decided to try out a new toy today, and I was so lucky. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met you. I live nearby. My sister works at the maternity hospital. Where'd you get discharged from? I dropped off some things for her. I came out and saw this beautiful girl crying. How could I pass her by? Thank you so much again, Camille said quietly, afraid of waking her daughter. If it hadn't been for you, I would have sat there on the bench at a complete loss. Well, that's a pretty bad boy you've got there. I hope he had a really good reason for not coming. I don't know. Camille shrugged. The most important thing is that he's okay. There's my house, third driveway. And when John parked in the designated spot, Camille looked around. The yard was frowning, and Stephen's car is parked here. Why isn't he picking up his cell phone? Did he fall asleep so soundly that he forgot about everything? Can I help you up? No. The girl shook her head. I'm going to the second floor. You see the balcony with the statues. Beautiful flowers. Yes, I grow them every summer. My grandmother's favorite. Camille stopped talking, remembering the wrinkles. A kind face. Well, I'll be off. Thanks again. You're welcome. It's such a small thing, laughed John. Be happy. Camille got out of the car and headed toward the entrance. She rang the intercom for a long time, but no one answered. This worried her, because judging by the car, Stephen was at home. He didn't even walk to the nearest store. She waited until a woman came out of the entrance and ducked inside. Climbing up to the second floor, Camille felt that her legs refused to go. Her whole body was shaking, and the girl could not cope with it in any way. Pressing the call button, she listened for a long time, but not a sound came from the apartment. Even Korat didn't bark, though the dog always barked when the doorbell rang. After standing like that for a few minutes, Camille called the neighbors. Almost immediately, a buried woman in a pink robe opened the door. Who do you want? She asked Camille. Excuse me, I live next door. My boyfriend won't open the door. What's that got to do with me? The woman asked unhappily. Maybe you've seen him or know when he was last home. A deep thought process was reflected on the neighbor's face. You mean Stephen, don't you? Oh, Camille, I didn't even recognize you. Where's the baby from? Well, I was discharged from the hospital today. Stephen's disappeared. I guess he's not home. Car's outside, though. Maybe he's out walking his dog? No, I saw him yesterday. I think so. He was walking with some girl last night. A tall, tubby one. Didn't even say hello, even though we literally bumped into each other. I was just going to the store. Not anymore, I didn't see him. Are you sure? Did something inside Camille snap? Quite sure, the woman nodded. And you don't have a key. You've lived here a long time. It was quick. I didn't have time to take anything. The keys are at home. We don't even have anywhere to go right now. Is Stephen not answering his cell phone? Well, I can't invite him over. I'm sorry. I'm not alone. So, no. Camille shook her head. I wasn't asking. I'm just really worried. What if something happened? If you see him, please tell him I've been discharged.
Tell him to call me. Just knowing that they're apparently having a thing with that girl.
How do I explain it? He put his arm around her like that. Well, not exactly modest. No, Camille hesitated. You must have imagined it. Well, I'm sorry to bother you again. I'll be off. Tell him if I have to, I will. The neighbor nodded and closed the door. Vera stood outside her apartment for a while longer, but no one came to the door. Tears flowed down the girl's cheeks again. The only person she could go to now was Vanessa. But her friend was out of town. The spare keys to the apartment were in the purse Camille had left at home. Realizing the hopelessness of her situation, Camille slowly began to descend, hoping with all her heart that the baby would not wake up soon. As if sensing her mother's excitement, the girl began to move. Hush, hush, my joy! Bye-bye! Hummed Camille. Feeling on her lips bitterly salty taste of tears, she stepped out of the entryway, thinking that it was a waste not to ask for the number of that kind man who had her entryway home. Looking up, she found, to her surprise, that John's car was still parked in her yard. I knew it. With regret in his voice, he said, approaching the girl with the child that was not at home. God, I'm so glad you didn't leave, Camille exclaimed joyfully. I don't know what to think. I called and knocked and got no answer, even though his car was right there. And Stephen always drives. Always. And a neighbor said she saw him with some girl last night. I think so. I got it. Camille, why don't you get in the car? We'll figure something out. Already in the car, the girl slowly began to come to her senses. The girl in her arms was still fast asleep, but Camille felt that she might wake up at any moment and ask for food. Camille. John turned to her as they were leaving the yard. Tell me, do you have somewhere to go? I have a friend, but she won't be back for a couple days. I don't have a key to her apartment, and my grandmother. But she lives very far away in another city. Then, listen, I can offer to rent you a room in a hotel for a while, but I think it won't be very comfortable with a child there. So, let me take you back to my place. Stay with me for a couple days until your friend gets back. Especially if Stephen shows up. Life happens. It would probably be very inconvenient, Camille tried to refuse. It's inconvenient to leave a mother with a newborn baby on the street. I have a big apartment. I don't live alone with my wife, but my son and daughter-in-law live with us now. While the house is being built, they won't be bored and scared, I promise. But how will they feel about the fact that you brought a complete stranger into the house, and even with a child? Is that okay? You're not worried about it. My wife is an understanding person. I think she'll be okay with it. Honestly, Camille frowned. It's not very embarrassing, and besides... Yes. John looked at her seriously. Besides, I don't have anything, baby. And you're talking about diapers? We'll stop by and get everything. But so no buts, girl. I have the desire and opportunity to help you. It's just silly to refuse. Camille did not argue, although all the way she tried to understand what made this man come up to her and offer help. When John came out of the supermarket carrying a couple of huge bags, Camille had no idea where they were going next. The SUV was carrying them down the noisy highway to somewhere out of town. Camille, don't be frightened. I live in the suburbs. I moved out of the city a long time ago. It's very picturesque. It's a big house, so you won't bother anyone. Camille only nodded silently. She was nervous and wanted to sleep more than anything else. Quite quickly, John drove them to a small cottage village. Judging by the mansions that stood there, the people who lived there were not simple. The houses, tucked in gardens behind wrought iron fences, were adorned with lush stucco, and expensive cars were parked almost everywhere. The air smelled of pine trees. How delicious it smells here, Camille exclaimed enthusiastically, breathing in full. You bet it does, John replied proudly. And there are relic pine forests all around. We can go for a walk afterwards. Evelyn, my wife, often walks in the woods. She even has her own trails. And it's perfectly safe, and there are lots of landscaped glades. How great!
And I was in Sosnovi Boro about 5 years ago, when I was still at school. My grandmother wouldn't let me go into the woods alone, but I was sneaking around anyway.
Well, here we are. The car stopped at the beautiful wrought iron grates, the patterns. It was so ornate and filigree that Camille at first even thought that the gate was killed by some unknown plants with black leaves. The lattice slid smoothly aside, after which John drove into a large courtyard. It was paved in cobblestone. Some of the stones were covered with soft green moss. The small house, which Camille at first mistook for the master's house, turned out to be an office, where the guard station was located and the staff lived. The main house stood at the back of the garden. It was a magnificent 3-story building of dark brick in the English style. One wall was completely covered with ivy, and in front of the main entrance and hid in the sun, a graceful fountain. Wow, ahead Camille when she saw the house. Now that's what I mean. A palace. It's not a palace. You should know, Camille, how much effort, exactly how much effort and money it took to build it. I don't need a place like this. It was Evelyn who insisted. A family nest for a big family. But in the end, my son was born only one. He doesn't want to live with us. So he got married and is living with his wife in an apartment. Now, we've decided to build our own house. And here, we have only earrings and dolls. Why did we build all this? I would give anything to live at least for a short time in such a house, Camille sighed dreamily. Nonsense! I'm offering you a free pass to stay here as long as you like. I know it seems strange. Some guy drove up, took me to a place I don't know where, and offered to let me stay with him for free. Yes, Camille nodded. Very strange. And I never would have said yes if it hadn't been for that. That's it. Don't think bad thoughts, John said in a soothing tone. Let's go and meet the household. The inside of the house was still more luxurious than the outside. Is there anyone here? Shouted John. A brisk clatter of heels came from upstairs. Faith looked up and saw a woman coming down the stairs. It was a real beauty. A fragile, precise figure, high-cut hair, black, as with moths, hair and huge eyes, Camille stood as if paralyzed, cradling the still sleeping baby girl. Oh, said the woman in a ringing voice. You, darling, I see you are not alone, and less frequent. Let's get acquainted. This is Camille and her daughter, Emily. And this is a beautiful young lady, my wife, Evelyn Genadievna. You can just call her Evelyn, the woman said softly, looking at the guest from head to toe. Camille felt a strong embarrassment under the gaze of deep gray eyes of John's wife. Well, Camille and Emily. Welcome, Evelyn. The girls are in a bit of a bind, so they'll be staying with us for a couple of days. Please help them get settled in. Baby's gonna wake up soon. That's how Evelyn raised one eyebrow. All right, come on, sweetheart. We have a spare room. I let the maid go, so we'll have to set it up ourselves. Of course, Camille replied, fearfully. I'm not even. Don't be afraid. It's not embarrassing. All my husband is a good man. If he brought you here, he must have had his reasons. And I'm certainly not going to find out what they were, unless you want to talk about it. The thought occurred to Camille that the woman might think John had brought a mistress and child into the house, but she dismissed it, realizing that women like Evelyn were not unfaithful. And John was quite sane. The woman led Camille upstairs. They walked down a long corridor and entered one of the rooms. The first thing that caught their eye was a huge window, almost the entire wall. The bedroom was spacious, bright, decorated in pale yellow hues. Wasn't it, Evelyn? Look, Evelyn began. It has its own bathroom, so I don't think you'll have any trouble bathing the baby and such. The bed's quite comfortable. Unfortunately, we don't have a crib, so you'll have to sleep together. What do you mean? Camille was embarrassed. I've never seen such a luxurious bedroom in my life. Of course we'll sleep together, especially since I'm only coming to stay with you for a couple of days. Squinting. Evelyn. Why don't you tell me what's going on? That's when the baby woke up and screamed for food. Oh, I'm sorry, Camille. I got distracted. I'm feeding Emily now. Of course, Sweetie, I'm in no hurry. If you need a bath, towels and robes are there. Feel free to take what you need. I'll leave you to it. When you're ready. Downstairs. When Evelyn came out, Camille was breastfeeding the baby. As she unpacked the bags, she found not only diapers, but everything a newborn needed, including clothes. This surprised her greatly, since it was John who had made the purchase. I guess when John and Evelyn had their son, it was the father who did the shopping. Thought she knew what to get and what not to get. Interesting man, and his wife's a little too benevolent for the rich, too. I never thought that people who have a lot of money, which is obvious from the house, could be kind and just take in a homeless person with a child. I can't take advantage of their kindness forever. I can't wait to get Vanessa back so I can go back to my grandmother's house. What happened at Stevens? He dumped me. I have to call him anyway. I don't understand anything. It's too weird. Even if he dumped me, couldn't you talk to him instead of making me hope for something? Or did he just get cold feet? Camille was buying up Emily. I changed her into a cute onesie that was among the purchases and put her to bed. The girl fell asleep very quickly. Like a kitten, the young mother smiled. Just ate and went straight to sleep. I'd like to take a nap myself. Camille went to shower, and a soft terry cloth robe lay next to her daughter. She fell asleep instantly. She was awakened by the baby's crying. Camille fed her again, rocked her a little in her arms so that she fell asleep again. After getting dressed, the girl decided to go downstairs. She quietly left the room and quietly headed for the stairs. A young boy, apparently the son of the owners, was walking towards her. Hello, he said, looking at Camille in surprise. You must be our guest. Hello. The girl was embarrassed. Yes? My name is Camille. I am Christopher. Smiled the guy. Where's your daughter? I put her to bed. I don't even know if I can leave her alone, but it's probably not a good idea to carry her around someone else's house. What? You're afraid of disturbing someone? Don't worry. Everyone here lives on their own. Nancy's at work. She won't be back until tonight. Dad's away on business, too, and Evelyn's mom is downstairs in the kitchen cooking. It's weird. I can't remember the last time she was at the stove. If you want to talk to her, you go downstairs. And after the stairs, take a left. Don't get lost. Is your house that big? It's no use, Christopher replied in a somewhat detached manner. My parents built a family nest, but Nancy refuses to live here. She and Mom have, what do you call it? A difference of opinion? No, they love each other. But if they start running the place together, they'll fight. We're building a house too, but a smaller one. I always wanted to live in one, but no. Would you like me to watch the baby for a while? Christopher suddenly suggested it. Nancy and I are going to be parents sooner or later. Of course, if that's what you want. Camille agreed. Come on, I'll show her around. Can you call me by my first name? It's kind of wired when a girl my age treats me like an old man. Good, smiled Camille. And you too, then. They went into the room where tiny Emily slept in the middle of a huge bed in a nest of comforters. Christopher quietly approached the girl and looked at her in silence for a long time. Camille, listen, of course, it's none of my business. But where the father of the baby? I do not know, shrugged the girl. No, I don't mean I don't know who he is or where he is. It's just that Stephen is missing. He didn't come to meet me from the hospital. He's not at home. If it wasn't for your dad, I don't know where I'd go. What do you mean? Christopher was surprised. You mean he just didn't show up? How long have you two been together? 1.5 years. But now, apparently, he just left me without any explanation. He didn't want a baby. That's the thing, he did. That's why I don't understand. The last time I saw him was right before I was discharged. Everything was normal. No sign that Stephen had decided to leave us. And now, the neighbor said he brought some girl home with him. That's it. I need to find out for myself. As soon as my friend gets back, I'll go to her place and do it. Why wait and wait for someone? First of all, you can stay here as long as you need to. Secondly, I don't have much to do right now. I can help you find your Romeo. Yes, it's a bit awkward to ask that. The girl hesitated. What's the big deal? It's not difficult for me even now. I wonder what made that fool do such a thing. Go for a walk and around the house, and I'll sit with the girl. If she wakes up, I'll call you right away. Thank you. Camille nodded and left the room. She wanted to talk to Evelyn. Camille still couldn't believe that these people were willing to help her in a completely unselfish way. What if they were up to something? No, not likely, but still. What if this Evelyn is crazy? I've heard they're very good at pretending to be kind and compassionate. Who's going to look for me? Especially here, it would be easy for such people to commit a crime and get away with it. If they wanted to take my child away from me, they would just kill me or, at best, make me a slave and make me clean these hundreds of rooms. And I can't even escape. There are so many guards. Camille walked into the kitchen, where Evelyn was working at the stove. The woman turned around, and immediately a wide smile appeared on her face, showing off her flawless teeth. Camille even flinched. Honey, are you awake? I came into the room. The new ones and the baby were sleeping so sweetly that I didn't dare to disturb them. What about the baby? I met your son on the way in. He offered to babysit for a while. Christopher loves children. He's always asked for a sibling, but it's never worked out. And she's not going to be a mother yet. The girl's got a career as a designer. Honestly, I wouldn't worry too much if I were her. A belly doesn't interfere with her painting. So you and Camille tell me, is Emily a desirable child? Of course, said the girl. I'm amazed at the directness of the question. We both really wanted a baby. It seems they both did. I spoke to John. He said your boyfriend has disappeared from the horizon without a trace. Camille, I'm sorry to be so blunt about this, but I need to understand who's in front of me to decide whether or not to help this person. I'm not John. He's the altruistic. Unimaginable altruist. Evelyn, I take no offense, Camilla replied firmly. I'm in a stupid situation, and I can't tell if I'm stupid or if I just don't know something. But I need to figure it out for myself before I jump to conclusions. Stephen and I haven't been together that long, and we're not officially married. But when he found out he was going to be a father, he was very happy. Or pretended to be. Now, I'm not so sure about anything. He worked a lot, often stayed late, because we had to earn money to support the child. Only it turned out that he had quit his job 3 months ago without telling me. And then the neighbor said she saw him with some woman. I'm not stupid. I can put 2 and 2 together. I just can't understand why he would do that. Emily's his daughter too. How could he just cut people out of his life like that? He knew I had nowhere to go. All my stuff was still in the apartment, and I wouldn't be lost. At the very least, I'll go back to my grandmother. All the more reason to have arms and legs. Getting a job again will work out somehow. Why did he do that? Could it be that he's trying to get back at you? Is this man jealous? No way! Camille even laughed. Who's jealous? How did I start living with him? He left work, and I was always at home. He knew my every move. Vanessa was the only male friend I had left. It was out of the question. Stephen was jealous, of course, but I never gave him a reason. Why should I take revenge on him? Oh, a man can have strange things going on in his head. No, if that's what you think, it's not worth pursuing. Then it's all trivial. He found someone else and decided to leave in English without saying goodbye. Then he's just a bastard. And you or Evelyn should be glad you got rid of him so easily. So easily, yeah. Camille was surprised. But now I have a child I can neither support nor educate. What makes you think that? Children are a happiness to bring up. You'll be fine on your own. I can see from your communication that you're an adequate woman. Even this whole situation would be another tear. Are you calm? Not like a boa constrictor, of course, but in control. Evelyn, Camille laughed. I was wondering why you're helping me. I always thought that people like you preferred to stay out of other people's troubles. People like us, laughed the hostess. What kind, I wonder? Well, the rich. Camille looked away. Girl, sighed Evelyn, money is no indicator of indifference and callousness. My husband, you know, you'd better talk to him yourself. But in a nutshell, he travels a lot and he loves India the most. When he first went there, he was lucky enough to meet these people. In general, they completely turned his view of the world upside down. He often helps the underprivileged yet. Almost always, people are to blame for their own misfortunes. Almost. Sometimes circumstances are such that there's nothing a person can do about it. Like you, for example. Of course, you can berate yourself for naivety, inattention, stupidity, after all. However, could you have known that the person you love, Rosaro, would turn out to be a hypocrite? So he played his role well. And now it's up to you. The way things turn out, getting out of this situation entirely in your hands will be difficult, but nothing is impossible. And if someone like John can help, why not? There's just not a lot of people capable of selfless acts these days. Few, I agree, Evelyn nodded, but there are some, and you were lucky enough to meet one. You're not trying to find a catch? There isn't. You're probably thinking to yourself that you're in a lair of the insane. But I can see by the look on your face that I'm right. Yes, Camille was embarrassed. To be honest, I had those thoughts. So, sighed Evelyn, understand, everything that happens is not just an accident. If John hadn't gone to his sister, he wouldn't have met you and your daughter, wouldn't have offered to help, and God knows how things would have turned out. But it did happen. So, you just have to move on with your life, learn the lessons, and try to see the whole picture. For example, do you have any thoughts on what you're going to do next? My friend's coming back day after tomorrow. I'm going to stay with her for a while. We used to work together, but I moved in with Stephen and left that place. What did you work as? Cook? Camille blushed for some reason. It's my specialty, but I really enjoy cooking. Ah, Evelyn smiled. So you gave up your favorite business for your family? It turns out so, she sighed. And now you're thinking of going back to it? I don't know how to do anything else. I just don't know how I can combine it with a child. I have no money even for the first time. Vanessa won't leave me on the street or let me starve, but I can't sit on her neck for long. That's why the best solution is to go back to my grandmother in the province. I'll get a job at some canteen or diner there. I'll leave Emily to her. Do you think she'd like that? Evelyn squints. I doubt it. I don't have the best relationship with my grandmother. She wasn't too happy when she found out I dropped everything and started living with a guy. I don't have any parents, or my mother died, and I never knew my father. My grandmother is my only relative. She'll understand anyway. But there's also the possibility that she'll say no. Camille, listen. Evelyn's brow furrowed. How about this? Well, I'm looking for a cook right now. We had a woman working for us, but she had to leave for family reasons. I can't cook at all. Can you appreciate my culinary delights? With these words, Evelyn tossed a plate of pancakes to the batter. John only comes home in the evening. I don't eat much. Christopher works from home, so he's always hanging out in the kitchen. If I offer you a place and lodging, you'll accept it. Ah, really? Camille looked at her hostess incredulously. But you don't even know how good a cook I am. Better than me, anyway, laughed Evelyn. Of course, I can find a high-level cook, but what's the point? We don't need any culinary masterpieces. Normal and tasty home-cooked food is on the table. It's ideal. Try it if you like it. I'll pay good wages. How about this? We can cook dinner together now. If everyone at home likes it, you can start work tomorrow. But what's bothering you? What, there's no one to take care of the baby? That's not a problem. And she'll get him a nanny. While you're busy in the kitchen, she'll watch the girl. Is that possible? Camille was very surprised. Why are you even suggesting this to me? I don't think I'm up to your family's standards. Aren't you afraid? A good cook is the key to my family's health and good spirits. And I have a feeling you're exactly that. My intuition never fails. And even the whole situation is so that the cook himself came to our house when we need him. I'm very willing to accept your offer, Evelyn, especially given my circumstances. But it's still too tempting. I used to be skeptical, suspicious. I didn't believe in people or in people, but John let me see the world. On the other hand, he always gives people a chance. It doesn't matter if they are relatives, subordinates, partners, or complete strangers. And he became an example for me. Of course, I don't know anything about you, but for some reason I feel I need to make you an offer and you need to accept it. All right, Camille nodded. Let's cook dinner. But I'll tell you right away, I haven't lived up to expectations. Confidence is one of the main keys to success. That's just my opinion. But it's your lack of confidence that could have caused your problems. Camille made a roast and a couple of salads. Evelyn didn't help much, preferring not to interfere, but kept a close eye on everything the girl did. And when everything was ready, they set the table together. So looked around the dining room at the hostess. John will be right back. I can't say about her. We'll have dinner without her. Here I am. John entered the dining room. What smells so good? Evelyn, did you make something eatable for once? Don't be sarcastic. The woman smiled. Maybe I did. Sit down at the table and I'll go while Christopher calls. So, Camille? Have you settled in? A little, John asked, sitting down at the table. Yes, she answered a little apprehensively. We had a little talk with Evelyn. I calmed down. She must have been broadcasting to you what a great man I am." The man laughed. Camille was serious about that too. "To me you are. Stop it." I did the least I could do. Evelyn and Christopher entered the dining room. The boy sniffed the air and seemed pleased. "I haven't had a roast in a long time," he said cheerfully. "That's what it smells like. Nancy probably stays out late on purpose to keep Mommy from eating. And it turns out he's missing a lot." "Let me show everyone," Camille suggested timidly. "The cook's right to giggle Evelyn." "Is that how you, Evelyn, cooked it?" Surprised, John? "Yes, here's to it," she said modestly. "I hope you enjoy it." When did the family start dinner? Camille received a lot of compliments. Everyone enjoyed the food very much. Evelyn sat and looked slyly at the girl, who blushed profusely, but seemed very pleased. What had Camille said to the hostess as they cleared everything off the table together? I guess I wasn't wrong. An agreement is worth more than money. John and Christopher are not likely to eat anything else now. Huh? I know them. I'm glad you all enjoyed yourselves. Go get some rest. The dishwasher will be fine. And your daughter's waiting for you. As Camille fell asleep, she tried Stephen several more times,
but he still didn't answer the phone. In the morning, Camille was awakened by a light knock on the door. She did not immediately realize where Evelyn was. Evelyn whispered, peering into the bedroom. "Are you still asleep?" No. "Evelyn," replied the girl, rising up on the pillows. "Camille, I invited the nanny. She's already here. So wake up. I'll introduce you. And you can trust her with your daughter. Wendy is a very nice woman. She used to babysit Christopher." "Okay," Camille nodded. "Give me 5 minutes." "You can take your time," Evelyn smiled. Camille got ready even faster. Emily consulted peacefully in her pillows, although her mother had to feed her a couple times during the night. The girl was starting to cry. "Here I am," Camille smiled, coming downstairs where Evelyn was already waiting for her, in the company of a pleasant older lady. "Meet Camille, huh? This is Wendy, you might say, our friend of the family." "Where's the baby?" Wendy asked in a high-pitched voice. "Is she still asleep?" Camille was embarrassed. The women talked some more, and then the nanny went to the bedroom to check on her new charge, Camille. "You may go about your duties, and don't worry about anything. You may prepare breakfast as you wish. No one here has any special preferences. You can make coffee in the coffee machine. I'll show you how it works." "It's true, John drinks, but can you make the brewed figures?" "Sure," Camille nodded. "I don't know if he'll like it or not, but I'll try." Evelyn showed her where the food and utensils were. Then Camille immediately began to prepare breakfast. The girl deftly on heat toasted puff jars and even boiled porridge with berries. The coffee for John she prepared according to her own specialty recipe. When everything was almost ready, an unfamiliar girl flew into the kitchen. "Don't tell me you're the goddess who cooked last night's dinner," the girl said cheerfully. "I'm Christopher's wife." "Nice to meet you, Camille," Camille replied, embarrassed. "You can talk to me easily. I'm not Aunt Evelyn, who's all high and mighty." "No, I didn't think so. Evelyn is a very pleasant woman. Pleasant, I'll grant you. But when it comes to her favorite son, she can be a real demon, trust me. So if you're gonna start a billet in this house, the first person you need to please is Christopher. He'll be pleased. We'll all appreciate it. That's how I thought he liked it last night." "You bet he did. I ate it myself, warmed up, came home late. I put extra on it. I don't eat much, especially in this house. I don't have time to cook for myself. Even now, I'm already too busy at home, so a couple of pancakes for a snack. It looks delicious. And I'll run." One by one, all the household went downstairs and had breakfast. Even John was very pleased with the coffee Camille made. "It's delicious, Camille," he said. "I usually boil my own, but yours is even better."
What's the secret? Camille laughed honestly. I boil it the way my grandmother taught me. I just add a little salt and black pepper. That way the flavor is off and it's more interesting. A long time ago. I used to drink coffee just like this. It's so strange to try something like that again. You could see in John's face that he was lost in his memories. Do you know, Evelyn? Would you like me to tell you why I came to you? No, of course not. And any other woman in that situation, I would have offered to help. But you reminded me of someone I used to love. Before I met Evelyn, I was with a woman. Are you anything like her? When I saw her, I thought for a moment I was seeing her again. Well, of course, there's no way you could be her. She's about 45 years old now. By the way, she was the one who told me the same coffee. It's so weird. What happened to her? Camille asked. Do you remember her so fondly? I can see that. As life went on, I loved that woman very much, but I had to leave for a long time. John sighed heavily. When I came back, she wouldn't even talk to me. No matter how hard I tried, it was all to no avail. I left, hoping that one day she would forgive me. But alas, I don't even know where she is now. And then I met Evelyn. Christopher was born. The past slowly let go of me. I stopped feeling sorry for myself. Being abandoned is hard. It was wrong of me to leave her back then, but deep down, I always hoped she'd forgive me. I guess I can forgive Stephen. What he did was despicable, but I don't want to hold a grudge. That's the right thing to do. You girls got your whole life ahead of you. You got a baby now. Live for you and her, not for some shady man who doesn't want you. I'm not judging anyone. But you are the only person who will be there for you until your last breath. Learn to love yourself, and then everything will work out. Without that, you'll be a victim of circumstance forever. Thanks again for the coffee. I'm off to work. I'll look forward to dinner. I'm glad you took Evelyn up on her offer. This house has never produced such a delicious and simple home-cooked meal. It makes one think of the ancestral nest again. Thank you, John. Camille smiled. Vanessa, hello, said Camille cheerfully when she reached her friend. Camille, what are you doing? Where did you disappear to? I went to your place yesterday. No one answered the door. The phones are silent. Did something happen? Vanessa, so much has happened. I don't even know where to start. Why don't you meet me and tell me all about it? I can't yet. Anyway, I got a job. So what about the baby? I can't believe Stephen agreed to babysit. He works too. He doesn't work anywhere. Stephen turned out to be a real asshole. He just disappeared. He didn't pick me up from the hospital. And I had no money, no keys to my apartment. I just stood there with Emily in my arms and cried. If it hadn't been for John, I would have been left on the street. John was wary, Vanessa. Don't think anything of it. He's a very decent man. Anyway, he took me in for a couple days. I thought I'd be gone when you got back. Then I'd stay with you for a while and go back to Grandma. But things worked out the way they did. This is a very rich and friendly family. When they found out about my situation, they offered to stay and cook for them. I said yes. Uh-huh. And? Does it pay well? I have no idea. It's enough that they give me a roof over my head and food. And Emily is looked after by a nice woman, the ex-nanny of the master's son. Nanny, you say? Real well-to-do family, apparently. They live in a town like this. Even the flies have a pass. Wow. So, what? You're locked up there and you don't get a day off. Vanessa, don't be ridiculous. I'm working my third day just for now. It's probably too early to ask for a day off. And I can't come to you either. I'll ask the landlady. I don't think she'll mind. Tell me something. You were in my apartment. I mean, his apartment. And no one answered the door? You know, I thought someone came to the door, but they weren't going to take it, and I heard the dog. The midget must have smelled me, but he wasn't allowed to bark. Understand? Camille's thinking. I don't care what Steven says anymore, but I'd like to get my things, my papers. I won't even show him my daughter. I could go with you, but he wouldn't open the door, obviously. Okay, I'll think of something. Thank God you're okay. I was so worried. Yeah, thank you. How did you manage to win the man of your dreams? Oh, I'll tell you all about it later. It's better than great. I'm glad. Camille smiled. I'm going to make dinner. I don't want to spoil my impression of myself. Goodbye, dear Camille said goodbye to her friend and went to check on her daughter. When she turned around, she saw Christopher slumped up against the railing. Oops, shuddered the girl. I'm sorry, I didn't realize anyone was here. Camille, stop apologizing. I was just walking and didn't mean to interrupt. Seeing that you're on the phone and it's me who should apologize for being an unwilling listener to the conversation. Say, do you need any help? Let me take you to your old apartment. Get what you need. Are you crazy? You don't need that. Actually, you should at least get your passport. Your mother will give you an official license, right? And you should probably go to the registry office to get a birth certificate. Otherwise, you're living here like illegal aliens. But how? Steven won't open the door. I don't know how to get into the apartment. It's very simple. He's the one who won't open it for you. If he sees that you've come with a guy, he'll calm down. He'll realize that you've probably already found someone else and you're not in the mood for a scandal. You'll get your papers quickly and we'll leave. And if he doesn't open up, we'll just call the police. There are neighbors who can confirm that you lived there, right? Of course, Camille nodded. Then let's go. Wait, I probably can't leave the house that easily. I have to make dinner. It'll wait. Mom doesn't eat during the day, and I'll be in town with you for a snack. No, I can't do that. I'm getting paid to do this now. Why don't I make it quick and then we'll go? I'll do that, especially since I doubt Steven will be home at this hour. There's a better chance of catching him tonight. Will, call me when you're ready. Camille made quick work of preparing dinner, but then the girl was distracted by her daughter, giving Wendy a rest. She couldn't go with Christopher until after dinner. Evelyn approved of her son's idea. When Camille and Christopher drove up to the house, it was already beginning to get dark. There were lights on in the windows of the old apartment. I think he's home. Camille pointed to the windows. That's great. Let's go to the intercom. They didn't ring the doorbell. When Camille got to the second floor, she didn't dare to call for a long time. Christopher did it for her. A dog barked at the door, sensing her mistress. Steven, open up! I know you're home. Enough already. I don't want anything from you. Just give me my papers. No one answered, although Camille heard cautious footsteps. The dog was barking. Steven, if you don't open up now, we'll call the police. Suddenly, Christopher said. Camille at the door, hoping that the ex-boyfriend would be frightened by the noise made and still approve. And so it happened. The door opened as far as the chain would allow. Steven's face appeared in the gap. What do you want? He mumbled. Camille answered him, and Christopher saw tears welling up in her eyes. The guy realized that she was about to pay and pushed the girl aside. Look, Steven, you've been a real asshole. But it's certainly not my problem. And the girl's her stuff, and live your life as you please. Who the hell are you? The ex-boyfriend asked with a sass. Suppose it's definitely none of your business. But I'll tell you now, Camille is under my protection from assholes like you. And since you didn't bother to explain to her what's going on, I'm not going to bother explaining anything to you. Let's just get the papers and go. Camille stood trying not to breathe. She could hear Corette barking somewhere in the back of the apartment. Locked him in, she thought. I hope he doesn't hurt the dog. She didn't want to interfere with the conversation. The mere sight of Stephen crying pitifully behind the chain was disgusting. Stephen locked the door, but opened it again a couple minutes later, holding out to Christopher a small folder and a woman's purse. Here's everything. If you need things, you can come back tomorrow and I'll pack everything. I don't need anything else. Don't hurt the dog, Camille said, and started down the stairs. You can forget about your daughter. If you ever want to see her again, you'd better put that thought out of your mind. Stephen shouted something after her, but Camille did not hear what he said. Camille had been working for the John family for almost a year. All the family loved the girl and her little daughter. Emily was already crawling, and Wendy was not the only one who did not sit with her when Camille was busy in the kitchen. Evelyn wasn't reluctant to babysit the girl either, and Steve and Camille didn't remember. She knew from Vanessa that her ex-boyfriend had a new girlfriend who was running his apartment. But even that information was unnecessary for Camille. She simply cut this man out of her life, not wanting to remember him and especially not to dig for reasons for his behavior. She was simply not interested. Now Camille's life was filled with new meanings. Her daughter was growing up fast. Camille did not want to miss a minute of her life. Therefore, having coped with her duties, immediately ran to the baby. Camille liked her job. It was pleasant and not difficult for her to prepare food for this family. Evelyn paid for the girl to take a cooking course with a famous chef. Girl, understand, the lady of the house told her passionately. It doesn't mean we don't like your cooking. Everything is wonderful, but you realize that working in this house is not the limit. You have potential. The girl will grow up. You'll have a lot of free time. Don't you want to branch out and say, open your own restaurant someday? Evelyn, where would I be before a restaurant, especially my own? Camille replied skeptically. What's the big deal? You've been with us for a year and we've had guests more than once. You should have seen the looks on their faces when they tasted your dishes. Many of them have never dreamed of such things. Of course, they're used to eating in good restaurants, but that they don't have any soul. Yours is different. And if you take my idea seriously, which I recommend you do, I'll talk to John. I think he'd be interested in investing in you. How so? Camille was surprised. Very simple. We'll ask him to lend you money for a little restaurant. You'll do it the way you want to do it. No one will interfere or impose their opinion. You hear me the way you want to hear me. Somehow I believe you'll succeed. I made sure you got your first clients. I think a lot of people we know will be interested. What if it doesn't work out? What if the restaurant doesn't pay for itself? Camille hesitated. I can imagine how much money that would be. To open your own place, even if it's small. Evelyn reassured her. Let's not let you worry about that. All right, fine. It's up to you to say yes. I'll leave the rest to me, please. Evelyn, I don't know how to react. It's a very serious matter. It's not serious. I say how much you enjoy cooking. I know you deserve better than to be in the kitchen all day in our house. And it's up to you to provide a decent future for our little girl. Camille was pleased that Evelyn called Emily our girl. Sometimes she thought that the lady of the house seriously considered Emily her granddaughter, though the status of grandmother was not at all compatible with the appearance and character of this remarkable woman. Anyway, sweetheart, Evelyn went on, you think about it. And I'm in no hurry. But never once has my advice hurt anyone. In fact, everything around us now is because of me. If John hadn't listened to me, I dread to think where we'd all be. I'll think about it. Honestly, I had a dream once, but it was impossible to realize it. Nothing is impossible, Evelyn summed up, drinking her coffee. Camille really wanted to see her grandmother. She often called her granddaughter and urged her to come with the baby. Jenna had never seen her granddaughter in person, only by video link. The woman was happy that Camille was well settled and doing what she loved, but Camille didn't know how to ask for a vacation. One evening, she was sitting in the kitchen watching Emily play, and there was a look of concern on her face. John, who had come in for a snack, noticed it immediately. He said to her, "What's bothering you?" "Oh, I'm sorry," Camille began to apologize out of habit. Apologizing again. How many times do you have to feel guilty? You've become like family to us. Speak up, huh? I can see that something's bothering you. Let's be honest. I miss my grandmother a lot. She called again yesterday and asked me to come over. And what's the problem? John's brow furrowed. It's not like we're keeping you tied up here. You've been working for a year now. You've never asked for a vacation. You don't even take a day off. You can't do that. Well, there can't be any. But we're all human beings. It's okay to take vacations. Go to her tomorrow and don't think about us. We'll live for a week. We won't die without your violin. Oh, it's true. My faith has shown. Of course, if you want, I can even take you. I thought you said she lived somewhere in the region. I have a free day. Will they take you and the baby? In comfort. It's been a long time since I've traveled behind the wheel. And when I was young, I drove all over the country. That was my job. I'd be happy to do it. If you're not joking, of course. Camille agreed happily. It's a deal. Go pack your things, and we'll leave in the morning. Camille immediately took advantage of the offer. So great was her desire to see her loved one. Camille had not seen Jenna for a long time. Her grandmother was ill, so she rarely went out. And Camille herself, drawn into the family life, could not afford to be away for long. Stephen was not particularly happy when she stammered about a possible trip. As promised, John was ready in the morning to give the family a last meal. Camille collected Emily and walked out to the car. John was already sitting behind the wheel. The girl was comfortably seated with her daughter in the back seat. That's what the man said. You didn't tell me where we were going, or it might turn out to be the Far East. I'd like to be back by tonight. No, Camille laughed. What Far East? My grandmother lives in Small. It's only about 150 kilometers from here. It used to take me a couple hours by bus. Small? John, I'll tell you how to get there. No, you don't have to, the man smiled. I know where it is. I used to go there a lot when I was young. You did? Camille was surprised. She noticed a strange, sad smile on John's face. Really, he sighed. I've even lived there before, but not for long. Wow, the girl was surprised. Who would have thought it? John drove the car very carefully, but even with this, they reached the car quickly. On the way, the man again voiced the suggestions Evelyn had made earlier.
So, Camille is thinking of going into the restaurant business? Oh, the girl was embarrassed. Did Evelyn tell you everything? Husbands and wives can't have secrets, the man grinned. So I'd really like that, Camille admitted. If you want it for real, then we'll make the best of it. If you already have some ideas, I'll tell you. I can show you a couple of nice rooms later. Onishenko will help with the interior. Oh, that's great. The girl almost clapped her hands. But I'm a little apprehensive. I have no idea how to run a business. There's nothing complicated about it. If there is a head on your shoulders, all you have to do is to give yourself to the process with all your soul, leaving all the organizational aspects to the experts and just cook. The car drove up to a 5-story brick house on 2 entrances. And this is where your grandmother lives? John asked strangely. Yes, Camille nodded. I grew up here. It's not the most decent house, but it's a very nice house, John said with longing in his voice. Camille found John's behavior strange. It was obvious that everything in this small town aroused some strange emotions in him. Will you come upstairs with me? Camille asked him. I'm afraid of embarrassing your grandmother.
but I'll help you lift the bags and the Johanska, and you carry the baby. They got out of the car and headed for the entrance. Camille rang the intercom.
It was opened immediately. They left her downstairs and went up to the 4th floor. There was no elevator in the house. On the way up, Camille noticed that John's face had changed considerably. There was a look of confusion on his face.
When they reached the apartment, the man looked at the girl strangely. The door opened almost immediately, and a short old woman stood on the threshold. When she saw Camille, the woman cried. She rushed to hug her granddaughter and kiss the little girl. My little girl was crying. Jenna, how nice to see you. I didn't even dream about it anymore. Why are we on the doorstep? Come quickly. It was only then that she saw John. But the woman froze for a moment, staring into his face. It can't be, she said at last. John, was it you? Camille? Who didn't understand. She looked at her grandmother and then at John. Tears were streaming down the man's face. He was silent. That's how Jenna came to her senses. Come on, get inside. There's nothing to stand on the landing. When everyone was inside, Camille finally asked Grandma, Grandma, you two know each other, don't you? But from where? Only now, she began to realize that John was not just experiencing all these emotions of some incomprehensible nostalgia. Do you know each other? Jenna looked at the mirror. Near? He stood still and could not cope with the shock. John did not stand still. Come into the room. The man obediently followed into the room. Camille noticed that he knew exactly where to go. She left Emily with him and went to help her grandmother with the bags. Evelyn, tell me, do you know who this man is? Of course I do, grandmother, laughed Camille. This man is my savior and employer. He made me believe that there is a place for miracles in the world. Jenna squinted at her, and now I'm wondering how you know him and why you're talking to him so easily. He said he used to come here a lot, but I didn't realize it was such a small world that you two would be old buddies. We're not old pals, Grandma sighed. You know, I'm not at liberty to tell you that. You'd better ask him yourself. I will, but not now, later. And I'd really like to talk to him myself, to be honest. This whole grandma thing is really weird. Okay, let's go meet Emily. She hasn't said anything yet, but I think you'll find her interesting.
Camille watched John. He was playing with the girl, but it was obvious that the man was very excited. Jenna sat next to him and was also visibly nervous. That's it. Couldn't stand it. Camille, I have a right to know what's going on here. If you need to talk, I'll go for a walk.
But then you will tell me everything. She quickly collected the girl and left the apartment for a walk for about 40 minutes. Camille came back. Emily was falling asleep in the stroller, and the girl hurried into the house to put her to bed. She carefully laid the girl on her old bed. Almost nothing in the room had changed since she had left a few years ago. Even her mom's pictures still hung on the wall the same way. Slightly stiffened, Camille machine-corrected the picture and stepped out. Jenna and John were already waiting for her. Camille couldn't tell from their faces what the conversation was about. Lyra. John started first. Swear. Please, I have something very important to tell you. Let me leave you two alone, Grandma said, and headed for the exit. Jenna looked at her. Man, don't go, please. Are you sure? Well, what's your game here? And she looked at John and her grandmother understandingly. Camille, sit down, sweetheart. John patted the couch next to him. We're going to have a long talk. Camille obediently sat down beside him and prepared to listen. Once upon a time, with a deep sigh, the man spoke. No, Offer, not like that.
25 years ago, I was sent to work here as a young specialist. At that time, I was a promising designer of oil equipment. And a decent oil field had been discovered in Small. The corporation I was working for was in charge of the development, so I jumped at the chance. No competition. Not a lot of people were willing to move up here from their big city jobs. I had nothing to lose. Besides, I had experience to gain. I got a room at your grandmother's.
So that's it, Camille exclaimed. That makes sense. Without interrupting, John continued. Jenna, there's a desire to be alone here, you know. Your mother, Molly, was not thrilled with her mother's decision to rent out one of the rooms to a strange man.
Was she as old then as you are now? I can imagine the emotions I evoked in her back then.
Well, Molly didn't like me right away. She realized that a tenant could at least make up for the plight the family was in during those bad times. But she couldn't control her emotions. She was always giving me all sorts of petty trouble. One morning I caught her in the hallway, carefully cutting the laces of my shoes with a razor blade. So as not to wake Jenna, I whispered to her, and she whispered back. It's ridiculous to make excuses. The situation was so ridiculous that soon we were laughing out loud. That's how we started to become friends with her. Molly quickly changed from anger to mercy. She made me coffee in the morning and walked me to work. It became so commonplace that I didn't realize I had fallen madly in love with her. Molly reciprocated. Even Jenna didn't mind. And everything went well as long as my contract was in effect. When I finally got to go to her place, your mom wouldn't let me in. She wouldn't even open the door for me. But I was persistent. I got her to come down to my yard, and we had a long talk in that funny fungus on the playground. She did not forgive me, swore that she had fallen out of love, and found herself a new man with whom she is happy. And I, the fool, believed it. She said it all with such rage. Only now I realized that it was all a lie, and she was just waiting for me to launch her from her heaven to earth, to finally honor her with my presence. I argued fervently at the time that I was only doing it for her. But the fact that she'd confessed her feelings for someone else made her cool down. I didn't want to interfere with her happiness. What could I do? I didn't even think she was lying or hiding anything from me. Why didn't I stand up for myself then? Why didn't I go to Jenna? Now I blame myself more than anything. Come on, Grandma Molly said in a soothing voice. She'd made her choice, and she hadn't said anything to me then about your coming. If only I could have. So I don't understand anything. It turns out it was 20-odd years ago. Where was I? Now, Camille, we're going to talk about you, John sighed. You see, your mom didn't just lie about the new man. She didn't say anything about you, and I didn't know anything, nothing. I don't understand, the girl frowned. What is there to understand? The man laughed nervously. Molly was pregnant when I left. She probably didn't even know it yet. And then I disappeared. And she was all alone. I don't know why she didn't say anything to me when I called, or if she was afraid of distracting me or losing me. Either way, she was wrong. But when you were born, I had no idea that my daughter was out there somewhere. Daughter? Camille questioned. A daughter exactly, Jenna. But why didn't you make any attempt to contact me? You knew my number. Molly forbade me to talk to you. She thought you were with another woman and just cut you out of her life. I was married to my job at the time, and I was madly in love with Molly. You should have known how I felt, Carol, that I couldn't rise to the level where I could provide her with a decent life. But there was no explaining that to her. Oh, if a woman harbored a grudge, it was useless to try to make contact. Molly was too proud, and Jenna. But when she died, when you were left alone with a small child, couldn't you have called then? You think I didn't call? Even remembering my daughter didn't stop me from doing it. Alas, your number had already changed. I just didn't know where to find you. I thought you'd come back one day. And as you can see, I was right. So wait. Camille's come to her senses? Are you saying John is my father? Yes, Camille. That's exactly right. John sighed and rested his face in his hands. But I have a completely different person on my birth certificate, the girl exclaimed. My mom always said my dad died before I was born. Why would she tell you the truth? Perhaps she would have done so one day when you were older. But alas, we'll never know. No, it just can't be. Camille was stunned by the news. Remember, I told you that I approached you at the maternity ward because you reminded me of someone. You look a lot like your mother. I kept marveling at how much alike people can be. If only I had known then, things would have turned out differently. Camille, I'm sorry, but I really had no idea. It's just crazy. Camille jumped up from the couch and started pacing back and forth across the room. No, I don't believe it. You're confused. She jumped out of the room, quickly put on her shoes, and ran down the stairs. John shouted something to her from upstairs, but Camille didn't seem to hear him. She ran out of the entryway and walked quickly, not seeing the road. She had to get her thoughts together. The sky had been cloudless up to that point. The clouds had thickened. Distant rumblings of thunder could be heard. Camille walked on, unable to see anything in front of her. When the first drops of rain hit her face, she lifted her face and looked up into the black sky. A flash of lightning blinded the girl for a second, and at that moment, everything fell into place. It was as if Camille woke up and realized everything John had told her. The rain intensified, and the girl who was wearing only a light dress was instantly extorted through. She ran through the puddles back to the house. There was John standing in the driveway. He, too, was already soaking wet. He seemed so funny to Camille in his gold glasses and his expensive jacket against the shabby front door that she laughed. Camille, come on inside. You're a sheet in a thunderstorm, shouted the man. The girl was crying. The tears running down her cheeks mingled with the sawdust the raindrops. She ran up to John and hugged him tightly. They stood in silence. Camille could feel the man's heart beating fast and loud. Even louder than the thunder was coming at them from all directions. It doesn't work like that, she sobbed. It's impossible. Nothing is impossible. The girl stroked her head. John, you know, like Evelyn says, she's always right.